Welcome back my gentle people, this is Corner Stories and today we have a few interesting stories dealing with family drama. So let's get into it. This issue has really been weighing on my mind. So this past weekend we had a birthday party for my son, 3 years old, that my in-laws allowed us to host it at their house because ours is too small and they have a big inside, full deck, and yard with plenty of outside toys for the kids. My husband and I invited all close friends and family. There is a lot of kids in our family, so our parties tend to have 40+ people. This is important because my sister's husband complains about this. The whole party, my sister, 32, and her husband, 36, stayed outside because he claimed there were too many people inside. Mind you, they just went to Disney for the summer and have gone to places with much more people with no problem, which I, 26, female, didn't want to make a problem, so I just continued to be polite and offer things if they needed. He didn't even agree to go inside for when we sang happy birthday to my son. He sat outside with my sister. Their daughter came inside with me though, which was nice, but my last straw was when my son, my daughter, my niece, their daughter, and my brother's oldest daughter were all jumping in the small trampoline together outside. Beside the trampoline was myself, my husband, 28, my mother-in-law, 50, and my sister's husband. Everything was going fine until my son and my niece, their daughter, started to fight over a balloon inside the trampoline while the other two older kids were jumping. So I said we need to take the balloon away because if one falls or they both fall, the others can end up jumping on them and they can get hurt. My sister's husband wanted to stop me and said, "It's okay, they are fine, they are just playing, leave it," but I ignored him and told him no, it isn't okay, I'm separating them and taking the balloon. So I went in on my niece's side to hold her and my husband went at our son's side to pull him away. At this point, none of us heard my niece complain or say anything, but my sister's husband said that my son bit my niece. He then said it was okay, but I was taken aback because my niece never cried, said anything. She tends to be very expressive if anything happens, which isn't like her. My son has no history of biting or ever being aggressive with anyone, much less other children. He is used to playing with babies and is always gentle. But even me telling him that, he kept saying my son bite her and that it's okay, I don't need to discipline him, in a very shitty way. I then wanted to see where my son had supposedly bitten her. Bill then went to look at both arms and nothing was there until he went back to the first arm and there was a small little red mark that looked like it could have been a scratch. He didn't let anyone see it in detail and he just pushed it off as it was fine and that my son didn't need to be disciplined if I didn't want to. Before that, my husband took my son inside and my mother-in-law ran inside with him to make sure he was on the same page as us. Which my husband agreed, he just wanted to cool down because this is the third time he has caused trouble at a party, first time causing it with the children. My husband then asked my mother-in-law when he was cooled down to please grab our daughter from the trampoline. Our daughter is autistic and non-verbal, 4-year-old. My mother-in-law then was trying to get our daughter out of the trampoline, but she was a little difficult. Jumping is her favorite, and didn't want to come at first because she wanted to continue jumping. Mill got a little frustrated, but ultimately my daughter went with her inside. But then my Bill was claiming that he had to pull my niece out because he was scared my mother-in-law was going to do something to my niece, which she would never. He only said that because she is bipolar but has never been violent with anyone, much less a child. And she is medicated. My sister then came over to ask what was the matter, why my mother-in-law looked so upset, to which her husband then said he had no idea and that maybe she ran out of her medication or forgot to take it. My sister then asked me to call her later to talk about it. He also claimed she kicked them out, which we didn't, and everyone there said that never happened. He then said I think we should go, and I looked at them and agreed. After I explained this story to everyone on my mother's side, they all said this is a childish fight and I should be the bigger person and drop it for the family and peace. My sister called me yesterday and basically was trying to make it seem like my mother-in-law was being crazy and caused the real issue. I tried to explain to her why things happened, but she wasn't having it and continued to say, "We said it was okay and we are family, disciplining your child is your business." In which I said the point is that my son did nothing, so I refused to punish him, much less at his own party when he didn't do anything wrong. She then tried to claim my daughter is afraid of my mother-in-law, which isn't true. She loves her me and has a close relationship with her. She finally said my mother-in-law was wrong and made the whole issue, and that if I'm going to defend her then the hell with me too, in which I told her to F herself out of pure rage. But now I'm just wondering, was I wrong? It especially is hard because my son loves his cousin, they are the same age and love to play together, but now I'm struggling to find a way to trust him around my children because if something actually happens, how do I know he is telling the truth? I feel like such a horrible mother and I just want the best for my children to grow up correctly. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Relevant comments. Sounds like Bill is the big troublemaker. And sis goes along with it. 100%. Leave his ass at home if he can't STFU and stop stirring up trouble. At this point, the sister and the BIL would not be invited anywhere. Yep, I agree. Stop inviting these crazies to your Mill's house. They have no respect and no idea of reality. Bill's comments about Mill medication are so wrong and horrible I'd have kicked him out. I'm sorry but I think you should go low contact with your sister and BL. Unfortunately, this will hurt your niece but she can thank her parents later. OP's response: he really is, he kinda bullies my sister. My sister said she was going to divorce him 2 Thanksgivings back when she came without him and we told her we would support her on whatever she wanted to do, and then she ghosted us. She only recently started to come more around and now this has happened. Now let's move on to story 2. My mom purposely mentors the bully who has tormented me for years. So my mom is a teacher at my school. Our school has a special elective you can take, which is being a teacher's aide during your elective period. It's mostly stuff like grading papers for them, making copies, mentoring, etc. It's pretty much always just the teacher's favorite student at the time. I found out at the beginning of the semester that my mom chose Dave to be her TA. Dave has made my life a living nightmare since middle school. He has bullied me mercilessly both physically and emotionally since 6th grade. I don't want to get into everything he's done to me, but everyone is fully aware of it, including the school and my parents. There have been countless meetings with school administration and suspensions on his end, but it never stopped him. Since we've been in high school I haven't had to see him as much, which is a relief, but the times that I do are always terrible. When I found out that he was her new TA, I was obviously very hurt and confused. I asked her why would she want to spend extra time with someone who made my life so terrible. She said that she had him in one of her classes and that he really isn't such a bad kid, but he has a really terrible home life that she can't tell me about that makes him act out. For the record, my mom has always had a soft spot for kids who come from bad homes. I reminded her of all the things he had done to me and she said that she understood, but he really needs help right now. I told her I got that, but why does it have to be you? We have a huge school full of teachers and staff who can mentor him. Why does it have to be you? She told me to stop being selfish and some kids have it harder than I can imagine and she's just trying to help. I was honest with her and told her that if she continued to have him as her aide, she was dead to me. She was choosing him over me and she would no longer be my mother. I would no longer talk to her, and the minute I turned 18, I was moving out and she would never hear from me again. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic, but after a couple of days of ignoring her, I was grounded. It didn't change my mind and my dad then tried to force me to talk to her. I still refused, so they pretty much took everything away from me one by one for the past few weeks. I no longer have my car, computer, guitar, and most recently my art supplies, and I have to come home from school and go straight to my room and am not allowed out except for dinner until I start talking to her again. They don't realize that this is just strengthening my resolve. I'm going to sit in this empty room every day silently until I'm 18 and they'll never see me again. My mom keeps coming and crying and begging me to talk to her, which makes me feel kind of bad, but she still won't remove Dave as her aide. Am I taking this too far? I just feel so betrayed. Relevant comments: saving a kid from a broken home while breaking up her own home. 0 Some game mom. Hope she's not a math teacher. I have a lot of thoughts here, but starting from the top, I'd wonder what havoc a bully could create by having highly sensitive information about other students at their fingertips, as well as having the opportunity to sabotage grades or tests or assignments. I'd assume that a TA would know things about other students' grades and disabilities, etc., that I wouldn't trust them with on any level. The rest of it reads like an instruction manual for how to destroy your relationship with your child by alienating them and continually punishing them for not folding to your frankly emotional abuse. Not speaking to your mother is far different than speaking disrespectfully to them or physically lashing out. They're punishing OP for showing any form of self-preservation. Every move they make is solely made to try to make a child bend to their will. I really wonder at the school for not recognizing this as an issue, and how someone with such frankly terrible parenting skills would excel as a teacher or mentor. The only logical outcome here is complete alienation of the child and severing any future relationship and/or having the child run away or self-harm. Next story: AITA for telling my mother she is not to share details about my son and I with my brother. I, 36F, gave birth to my son just under a year ago. I moved away from home to university to train as learning disability nurse when I was 21. It was at this time I met my now husband, who qualified as a nurse and hasn't returned to the area where I grew up. My youngest sibling, 29M, was diagnosed with autism when he was 4, and we were incredibly close growing up. Whenever he got upset or had a tantrum, I was always the only one who could calm him down. He called me his cool older sister, and growing up I was always fiercely protective over him, as were my friends. When I met my now husband, they also immediately got on well, even though we didn't see each other frequently, and he saw my now husband as an older brother. I should add that my brother has always gotten into trouble, and not the cute kid kind. He has previously used social media to threaten other kids and has been physically violent to my parents whom he lived with, resulting in breaking my mother's collarbone and fracturing her ribs, along with the family discovering several concealed bags of knives, machetes, knuckle dusters, etc. Fuck knows where he got them from. I have attempted to use my professional knowledge to support him and seek additional services, however, as his disability has been deemed to not be that severe, my points have fallen on deaf ears. I have also stated if it is a case that he was fully aware of his actions and how they impact others, there should be consequences, as is the case for the individuals I work with. He had never previously attempted to threaten or attempted to harm me, stating that he knew I specialized in working with violent mad fuckers. His words, if he ever tried to hurt me, he was sure I would either be able to take him to the ground or have him arrested. I should add that the professionals involved in his care have repeatedly stated that he is fully aware of his actions and it is more related to anger issues rather than a disability. This has resulted in numerous incidents with the police and police warnings over his behavior. In 2022 I experienced a miscarriage. I didn't tell my family for some time as it occurred early in the pregnancy and I didn't want to cause any distress to my aging parents and brother. When I did tell my mom, I advised her not to inform my brother. As it turns out, she did, whilst they were arguing, because she thought it would calm him down. What actually happened was he sent me a series of messages threatening me, stating he was glad my baby died and I should be by the devil. This immediately caused alarm, not only as I was mourning a loss, but concern for my brother and his mental health. I raised concerns with family, his professionals, but they shrugged this off as him just being him and told me I should get over it. I never received an apology. Fast forward to 2023 when I fell pregnant with my now son. I initially asked my mom not to tell my brother until I was further along in my pregnancy, but she went ahead and told him anyway. He later proceeded to send messages and song lyrics stating how he would set my baby on fire and kill him. At this point, I had enough and was distraught that my little brother could act in such a way as to wish his nephew dead for no apparent reason. I contacted the local police to report this along with the professionals supporting him and that they did not want any details about my son or me shared with him. I was told he probably meant this as a joke and was overreacting. I replied that whilst this may be the case, would be standing my ground until such time as he apologized. Through this time I have found out that my mom has shared photos and provided updates against my wishes and keeps telling me I should just drop it. I however am sticking to my personal and professional opinion that my brother cannot continue to act in this manner, nor will he meet my son until I am sure that he will not pose a risk to him. He has received a police caution, but has been assessed to not be mentally unwell and is mentally competent. My husband is in full agreed and gets really upset whenever this topic is brought up by my mom. Relevant comments. Sounds like mom should be on an info diet as well. You put your foot down and she pulls the rug from under you. Yeah, that feels like the only solution. Parents just don't get info or contact with this or future grandkids until they understand that they can only share information that has been okayed to share. If there is a similar issue with other family members or friends sharing things with parents or younger brother, they get put on a similar info diet. Just be aware that the common first approach to complying with this is to get better at hiding the fact that they are passing on information. Now let's move on to the final story, AITA for continuing to renew a restraining order on my own mother. So this story actually starts with my dog. I have a beautiful purebred Siberian Husky who's unfixed. At one point I had my uncle dog sitting for me and he and his family fell in love with her. She is sweet-tempered, loves kids and is a silent husky. She doesn't vocalize much unless she needs the bathroom or is playing with my husband. One day while I, 25F, was visiting my mother, they were at the house. They don't live there but visit more often than not, and were talking to my uncle when his girlfriend let my dog out. As I was getting greeted by my dog, she started pulling her away to bring her back inside the house. I said I wanted to spend time with my dog and she told me she was no longer my dog. I admit I probably shouldn't have called her a bitch, but the next thing I know everyone was suddenly arguing against me and kicking me off the property. During this, my mother took my son into her apartment. I called the cops to report my dog stolen as I only weighed 106 pounds at the time and had absolutely no way of beating my uncle at the time if he got physical, highly likely. 2 cops showed up and despite her collar having both mine and my husband's phone numbers on it and I showed them her chip card, basically told me there was nothing they could do and to take it to court and to vacate the property. I informed the officers that my son was still in my mother's apartment and I had to get him. The officers left. When I went to go get my son, my mother physically blocked me from getting to him while shouting verbal abuse at me. I've grown up with this from her my entire life, and although she's lost weight since I was a child, she's still easily over 200 pounds. When I stood up to her and told her that she couldn't intimidate me anymore as I'm not scared of her, she did something I honestly didn't expect, but I should've. She started to strangle me in front of my 3-year-old. Out of pure instinct, I punched her in the face. Thankfully she let go, but then she proceeded to beat me across the apartment to the door. By the time we got to the door, I was on the ground and basically just trying to keep the door closed as she opened it, screaming for help as if I was attacking her. Her boyfriend, his roommate, and my uncle then came running to help her physically force me off the property. My son came running to give me my glasses. At least they gave me back my phone too. My call to my husband was still connected, and it was the only thing to save me later on. Of course, I called the cops again, but the same two showed up, this time with a third. They refused to get my son and actually threatened to arrest me for trespassing and assault. My mother didn't have a mark on her. I was sporting several bruises, hair loss on the whole side of my head, and bite marks. I unfortunately had to leave my son with her for the night, and as soon as I could the next day I went to the courthouse and got a restraining order against my mother for both myself and my son. I was so thankful to see an entirely different cop show up to help me serve the restraining order and get my son. And so grateful to see my son safe. However, he has not once asked after her since that day. I never want her near my children or myself ever again, but the courts won't grant a lifetime restraining order, so it has to be a conscious choice of mine to renew it every year. Edit. I attend the RO meeting every year through Zoom as it's too much of a travel and risk to attend it in person. The part is that even if she doesn't attend the hearing, which I much prefer simply so I don't have to hear her, they send her a new RO like a yearly reminder, which will set her off and cause her to be a problem for everyone around. I did get my dog back before moving and don't care for the comments about her being unfixed. She has been tested, we take care of her health and happiness, and she's well trained. And that is the end of the story. That's it guys, this is where I will leave you. I hope you enjoyed the stories I had for you. I certainly enjoyed them. Please be sure to drop a like or a comment, and it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and I will see you. Corner Stories signing off.